Good morning. Welcome to our Sunday worship service. I am Ashley Anderson, and I am very excited to serve as your celebrant today. For folks who don't know me, I am a clinical mental health counseling master's student, and I'm actually about to start my program tomorrow, so I'm a little bit nervous about that. And I hope to one day provide positive and affirming mental health care to LGBTQIA+ youth and young adults in the Pullman-Moscow area. For now, I love spending my free time, what little I have, with my friends, my husband, our cats, and our geckos. I would like to extend a special welcome to all those who are joining us for the first time. We are very glad that you are here. If you've come in person, you should have received a welcome packet with an information card in it. If you fill that out and drop it in the offering basket, we will be in touch to support you in finding your way into our community. If you are joining us online, there is a link on our website to an electronic version of that same card. Our welcoming committee members have yellow name tags and can answer any questions or point you towards additional information. Whether you are new or not, please consider staying for coffee and conversation after the service, either downstairs in our fellowship hall or in our Zoom room. Now, let's say our words of welcome together. Whether this is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, and whether you strolled, rolled, Zoomed, ran, or danced in, we are glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders. All are welcome here. Now we will take a moment to say hello across the technical divide. First, we're going to show the people joining us on Zoom. If you are at home, please turn on your camera. Now, people at home, wave. And now, people who are attending the service in our building, it is your turn to wave. And now I invite those of you who are in the sanctuary to greet one another with a nod, a handshake, or a smile. And those of you on Zoom might type a greeting in the chat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you. Whenever you're ready.
We preface our service by acknowledging our church was built on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse, and the Shishumps, called the Coeur d'Alene. Let us pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and for responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. We are hoping that folks joining us via Zoom have a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices together. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
Good morning. My name is Ryan Urey, and I'm a longtime member of this church as well as a current employee, and I'll be leading today's service about our small group ministry. Now, there's nothing mysterious or esoteric about this program. In the small group ministry, groups of about 8 to 12 UUs from the congregation get together twice a month, usually either at church or at somebody's house, and discuss various topics of spirituality and personal interest. So what's so special about that we dedicate a whole service to it? Well, simply put, it's people talking about things that matter with people who care, and that's the bedrock of community. Not just our community, but really all communities. Large, complex things can be constructed from tiny, simple parts. So I like to think of it this way. The fundamental structure of every ocean or lake or waterfall or river is a water molecule. The fundamental structural unit of every computer and smart device, it's the microscopic transistor. And the fundamental structural unit of human civilization is the conversation. And I don't mean the curated sniping that passes for human interaction online. I mean real, in-person engagement where we can encounter other people in their wholeness with all their flawed beauty, their frightful vulnerability, and their complex humanity. It is in these kinds of interactions that we have the opportunity to grow, to know ourselves better, and to be reminded of our interdependence. But it's more than that. We talk here often about the fraying of our society, the increasing polarization and isolation and conflict. As we have fewer and fewer meaningful, fully human interactions, as we neglect that fundamental structural unit of society, it shouldn't be any surprise to see our larger structures start to fail. I mean, how can we save democracy or advance social justice if we can't even talk to our neighbors with openness and respect? Remembering how to engage with fellow humans with presence and compassion and deep listening may be the best, might be the only cure for many of the social ills now plaguing us. And small group ministry is where we can start to have those conversations, build up our peopling skills, and start to become the people that we need to be to create the world we dream of. In the words of Reverend Elizabeth, whose previous scripts I heavily poached to make today's service, I mean, if you're going to pick a source, what better? Talking about things that matter with people who care isn't just something we do for fun. It's a radical, countercultural move that will transform us and our world, if we let it. We have several small group members here today who have graciously agreed to share their experiences with us. But first, let's start with today's opening hymn, Comfort Me, number 1002 in the teal hymnals.
Comfort
So Mary Jo has an announcement for us. Come join me.
Hi, I'm Mary Jo Hamilton. I'm here on behalf of the Month of Sundays Committee. As you know, we collect our offering, all of our cash offering every month for a local cause that does good things for our community. And I'd like to ask Holly Adana to come up. I hope she's here. Yes, good. And she is the director of Circles of Caring Adult Day Health. And they were our recipient a couple months ago. So I have a check for her. I'll talk loud. We were able to collect $2,192.17.
People on Zoom can't hear you.
Oh, okay. We were able to collect $2,192.17 for Circles of Caring Adult Day Health. And would you like to? Could you say a few words about? Come on over here.
Hi, thank you for having us here today. As she said, my name is Holly Adana. I'm the executive director at Circles of Caring. And Mary Jo wanted me to give a little information about what our program is and where your money, who it's benefiting. So we are, in a nutshell, kind of an adult daycare. We don't particularly like to use that word just because it references juvenile and we're all about adults. So we are here to help caregivers who are taking care of a spouse or adult or aging parents who needed a break from their loved one. They might have dementia or traumatic brain injuries or mental health issues. If they're not safe at home alone during the day, we are a safe alternative. And what we offer the participants is socialization, medical oversight, social services, cognitive stimulation, physical exercise. We really want to serve the whole person and the whole family because caregiving is hard work, and I don't know if people realize that until they're in the middle of it. So that's where your money is going and benefiting, and we are very grateful. And thank you very much.
Now let's take a moment to engage in the practice of generosity together. For those of you able to make a financial contribution, the logistics are on your screen. We typically give away all the cash from our Sunday offerings to local charities whose missions align with our values, a program called the Month of Sundays. This month, your donations will go towards keeping our little free pantry stocked, an endeavor that has been more challenging than we anticipated. To donate, please indicate Month of Sundays on your check or from the online drop-down menu. In the spirit of love and for the continuing work of this church, we will now take some time to practice generosity together. Every day, I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle. In the haystack of light, it was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over, in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made out of grass.
So for the musical meditation for today on our service about conversations, I've chosen the song Talk by Coldplay. And I warned you all the last time I was service leader that you put me in charge, you're going to have to listen to the music I like. So this song actually isn't not just because it's about conversations, but it has a very special place with my wife Brandy and myself. Many years ago, before we had children, we were living in Japan together, thousands of miles from friends and family for the first time, really. And as you can imagine, it got very stressful. So in order to work through things as they came up, we started having weekly family meetings, just the two of us, of course, to sit down and talk about all of the things that are hard to talk about, create a space where it was safe and possible to do that. And we'd always start with a ritual. We'd light a candle, we'd ring a bell. This was before before we knew we were Unitarians. And then we'd start with a piece of music, and it was different every week, but we finally found this song, and it fit so well that we just started using this song every time. So it just always reminds me how essential communication and simple conversation is to building and maintaining all of our relationships at every level. So I hope you enjoy this as much as we do. So to talk and to listen. This is how we weave community, how we challenge fear and heal hearts and create belonging. And it's so simple, a child can do it. Although in my experience, they tend to lean pretty heavily on the talking part of that equation. But to again quote Reverend Elizabeth, small group ministry works so well in UU congregations because they tap into our greatest resource, each other. Not books or creeds or history, but the hearts and minds of people who are living alongside us, struggling, questioning, learning and growing, becoming more skillful humans together, end quote. Beyond the small group ministry, there are lots of opportunities to connect with others in the church this way. Our children and youth have the Our Whole Lives program and Coming of Age. We have a parents group. We have 2 meditation groups, the Purple Paisley Quilters, Holy Crones, UU Wellspring, the choir, a divorce group, a bereavement group, our Navigators USA Scouting Troop, our new campus ministry, or for those of you who prefer an agenda with your conversation, we have at least 20 different committees here at the church at last count. More all the time. So please raise your hand if you're currently in any of these small groups. Good, I'd say at least half of the folks here. If you're not yet in a small group and have any questions, please talk to anybody who raised their hands. Or you can also take a moment after service to fill out a sign-up sheet. They're down in the fellowship hall on the little blue table. There's just short, simple little forms you can fill out, leave right there, and I'll get in touch with more information on how to get started. So now let's hear the experiences of some of our small group participants and what effect their participation has had on their lives. We'll start with today's celebrant, Ashley, and then we have pre-recorded testimonials from Shane McFarland and Ann Brown.
So, when I started coming to this church almost a year ago now, it was in October, which I can't believe that. It was because I felt like I needed community. I had some friends in Pullman, which is where I live. I don't live in Moscow. But most of the friends I had made during my time in undergrad at WSU had either moved away or were too busy with graduate school and or work to spend any significant time hanging out and chatting with friends. I love talking with others about deep topics and current goings-ons, but I just didn't really have any consistent access to that, especially not in a group setting. I also felt that I just didn't have a strong system of support other than my husband. He's amazing, but I think we all need more than just one person to fulfill our social and communal needs. And he had found his community playing games at our local Palouse Games, which is actually where he's at right now. He's got a Warhammer tournament, so he's having a lot of fun with his friends. But I didn't really have anything like that. I would just kind of wait for him to get home, which is not great. When I found the UUCP and learned that there were small groups, I knew I had to join one. I was quickly added to the Pullman small group led by Janet DeTemple, and I immediately felt so welcomed. It was fun to get to talk to people about complex subjects, and I really felt like I had people to talk to about my week, even when it wasn't all happy or good news. In our small group, we get to discuss further the topics that we hear about on Sundays, and we get a chance to apply them to our own lives and connect them to our own life experiences. Since joining the small group, I feel that I have grown a lot in my respect for the lived experiences of other people and how those experiences can lead to a beautiful variety and diversity of opinions and views that I never would have considered otherwise. It's easy to get stuck in your own worldview and perspective, and it takes listening to others to break out of it. Every week, before we talk about the weekly discussion questions, we have a group check-in where everyone talks about how their week has been. When someone shares happy news, the group celebrates with them, and when someone is having a hard week or month or year, the group holds space for that pain and hurt and always offers support and compassion. I know that when I've had a bad week, I won't be bringing everyone down by sharing, because that's the point of being in that type of community. Through my time in small group, I have become much more integrated and connected to this church community, and I truly feel like I have a place to be myself here. Seeing you all on Sundays is great, but it's hard to feel fully enmeshed in a community when you only get to talk to folks over after church coffee or the few minutes before service starts. It is my strong belief that everyone benefits from being a member of a strong and supportive community, and my small group has not only been that for me, but it has tied me closer to all of you here at UUCP. Now it doesn't feel like I'm an outsider visiting a community. I am part of this community, and it is a part of me. If you, like me, feel you could use some extra community support, or you go home on Sunday itching to talk more about the topic, I highly recommend looking into joining a small group, or if you can't, finding other ways to get more involved in our wonderful community. As were mentioned earlier, there's lots of options. Thank you to all my small group members for being yourselves and being awesome, and thank you to everyone else for listening to me. Go small groups.
All right. Well, my name is Shane McFarland, and I was asked to give my thoughts on what being a part of a men's group has meant for me. And I have 5 minutes to do this, and I have way more to say than I have time to say it. So I'm going to prop up my timer here and try to get through some of this. I sketched a few thoughts, and we'll see how this goes. So men's group has been a big part of my life the last couple of years. Joined the church 2013, 2014, and I forget exactly when I joined the men's group. It must have been 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it's been a really important addition to my life at different phases over the last few years. And I would say that one of the biggest contributions it's made has been a break from kind of isolation and loneliness. And the Surgeon General just released a report about isolation and loneliness and how that, given enough time, can have negative outcomes that parallel smoking daily. So negative health outcomes that are fairly extreme. And we meet once every 2 weeks. And then sometimes that turns into every 3 weeks because we meet on particular Tuesdays. And yeah, it's having a break, and it's a mile marker, and I need to move a lot faster because there's a lot more to say here. So uh, it's we have support for one another. I've had relationship shifts, I've had work shifts, and shifts, I mean changes in, not necessarily like shifts in the daytime. And the men's group has been hugely supportive, even when I've been out of cell and internet signal, of keeping me on board and continuing to be support for me. It's a space for social support more broadly than just within the group. So the group, we announce activities and volunteer for and promote community contribution, and that could be some of the activities that were led by members of our men's group to improve the church space, or serve on committees, or even serving within the men's group and inviting other people to come in and join us. And it's also been an extension for my responsible search for meaning. I would say that the group, we have conversations, again, I'm trying to keep this brief, that span things that are going well in society, things that are not going well. We dive into philosophy, humanity, and history, whether it's our history or it's a more extended history that folks in the group have experienced, their lived experience. And then I've spent a fair bit of time, and this has been one of my goals, but it's definitely been enhanced by being a part of men's group, and that's figuring out what is a man, what is it to me, and how does that manifest in my life. And I think that has to do in part with my personality. Each man has their own personality, and some of that's measurable, like psychometrically and statistically, and how we represent manhood and what that means can be different individual to individual. But it's bubbling down to, well, we're humans. Traditionally, it's been sacrificing time with family and in the home for work, and that's shifting more recently. And men definitely have their own struggles at the population level, whether it's that loneliness and isolation due to geography or work, or social isolation. It's showing up in lack of persistence and educational settings and other things. So there's definitely struggles, and there's benefits to being a man. It's about making hard decisions, and you want to be generous with the outcomes of those decisions, and you also want to take as much responsibility as you can for the negative outcomes. And I try to live that, and I try to do that, and I try to be honest. And a man wiser than myself, and I'll very much, I won't be including everything that was shared here, but he said men have a responsibility for strength. And some of that comes from dimorphism. It comes from the difference in size between men and women, even as children, or as adolescence hits. There's my 5-minute mark, and I'm going to go over. It's mental strength, it's physical strength, and to some level, it's emotional strength. However, we do need to seek support, and I really feel that the men's group has provided a lot of emotional support for me as the years have passed, and I couldn't be more grateful. And then I would ask myself the question of, would I recommend men's group to my friends, or given the choice at this time, or if I was able to rewind time and join men's group again, I would recommend it to my friends. I would go back in time and do it again. I would continue, and I will continue to be a part of the men's group. And it's just been of great value to me, in that reducing that isolation, reducing that loneliness, having some social responsibility and a place to share that's private. And we don't share out details about what is said within men's group. And some of the way that's looked, again, I'm trying to be brief here, is hearing about the travels of members in the group. And I'll try not to use names here, but I'll be touching on everyone in our group to the best of my ability. But hearing about the adventures and travels, and going to other members' homes and having these conversations, and in their gardens and in their space, going on long bike rides, and some of the longest bike rides I've been on, and having conversation while on those rides. Uh, sitting beside a friend who is passing, enjoying food and time together outside of the men's group, hearing original poetry, and having that shared by those who wrote it, having milkshakes and discussing I guess, the weaknesses of social science. I had many hours and many milkshakes with one of our dear members, and traveling, listening to music. I had a wonderful opportunity to travel to Central Washington and enjoy, in my opinion, one of the great bands of my era. Or working on a social project, a community building project, quite literally infrastructure project with the church, and just soaking up the wisdom and the curiosity that the members of our men's group have. And I just feel incredibly lucky to have shared time with you guys, and I look forward to continuing. So I love you all, and thank you for your kindness, for your strength, and your wisdom. I appreciate you very much. I'm sorry I went over 5 minutes, but there's a lot to say, and I feel very lucky. So thank you.
As I was growing up, hierarchies were a really big part of my education and of my everyday life. I learned to think, I was taught to think about the world in hierarchical fashion. So, I mean, for example, there's apex predators here at the top of the hierarchy, and then we think about all the food that they eat, all the animals they eat as the next level, and then the animals they eat is the next level, all the way down to microbes and sunlight and plants and things way down at the bottom. And most of our focus as I was learning about animals was on the apex predators. That was the most important thing. They were the most powerful, they were the most interesting, and all of my focus pretty much went to them, and the other plants and animals and things factored in mostly as supporting cast, right? Things that, well, it's fun or interesting to kind of learn about, but weren't that important, or certainly weren't revered as powerful. And the same thing happens in, for instance, politics. I learned to pay a lot of attention to the President of the United States because the president is at the top of the pyramid. And then underneath that, I pay some attention to members of Congress or the top of the judiciary. But as you filter down through the local politicians and even the people whose job it is to run our city, is didn't get a lot of attention. They're just supporting cast for the apex, the top of the pyramid people who are the most important, and got most of my attention. I know a lot more about presidents of the United States than I knew about the mayor of my own town, or especially the city workers or the firefighters or whoever was helping actually run the community that I lived in. The same thing is true in religious circles. When we think about heaven, the heaven I grew up with, there's God at the top. God's main helper would be Jesus, and there's, you know, some angels under there, and then, and interestingly enough, in my religious tradition, the angels were actually prophets that had sort of been exalted to angel status, and so then under them is the prophets that hadn't yet been exalted. And then there's a definite hierarchy down from there. But even in the congregation, there was definitely a pyramid. You knew who was in charge, they got most of the attention. Most of the learning happened from them. They would impart wisdom. And then you would know in the hierarchy who was under them and under them and under them. And way down at the bottom, you find people like women and children who don't factor in except as a supporting cast. I know this doesn't sound a lot like why small groups are important, but I will get there, I promise. Having grown up with that mindset, looking at the world in that way, coming into a UU congregation is part of a shift for me over the past few years of recognizing that the world isn't actually organized into pyramid-shaped hierarchies, that what's actually going on in the world is a web. Those apex predators are incredibly vulnerable when there's something going on with the microbes or with plants. And they live in an interconnected space where they're not actually powerful and in control and the most important thing to learn about. Sometimes the most important things are the smallest. Sometimes the important things that are shifting everything is a whole bunch of different things interconnected in a way that changes the whole environment. And it's the same thing with politics. I learned over time that I don't have a lot to do with who is and who isn't the president of the United States, and they don't have any connection to me at all. But the little people on the bottom of that pyramid, they're incredibly important. The people doing the work of the local community have a lot of power over what happens in my life. And I wasn't used to taking my time and my mental effort and my energy and what I cared about and shifting it from something that I actually didn't have a lot of influence over towards something that I actually do have a lot of powerful impact if I want to show up in a certain way. And the same thing has been happening recently with religious beliefs. We're shifting away from that model, that structure of there's a leader and then everybody supports the leader and learns from that leader. It's been such an interesting process coming into this community because in this community, it really is a web rather than a hierarchy. And sure, there's leaders in different capacities, but most of the time, those leaders facilitate the webbiness of it all, facilitate the interconnectedness, and allow every single part of that web to have the influence that it can have in order to uplift the whole. And it's just been such a wonderful thing to watch. The first thing I really noticed this in was the children. I used to be in a situation where children were kind of seen as assets, but not as resources and not as wise necessarily or part of the important things. In this congregation, I just week after week have sat there. I've watched the whole congregation while the children are up front having the story time. It's so neat to watch their words are communicated to everybody and you can feel the reaction. People aren't ignoring them as like, oh, this is the kids' time and that doesn't matter. Like these kids matter and their wisdom is actually influencing the whole congregation. And when we sing them out with the Reed benediction, we mean it. These children are a valued part of the web of the community. It took me a little while longer to get integrated into the small groups, but as I've been showing up, as I've been participating, it has occurred to me that the small groups are actually one of the most powerful ways that we as a community create that web, that net of connection between us. Because in a small group, yeah, there's probably somebody designated as the leader or the facilitator, but really my experience has been that everybody's wisdom is valued. Everybody's there to both share and be heard as they do that and to receive, to hold the wisdom, the smiles, the tears, the difficult moments of the other people in the group. And as we do that, it's a deeper connection, and those connections weave us together as a web, a community where everybody matters. When I walk into church on Sunday, I have opportunities to learn from lots of people and to feel the influence as people share their joys and their sorrows, and to hear the wisdom of the children, and to be uplifted as we all share in our different capacities and ways. But when I say everyone is welcome here, no matter how you get here, no matter who you are, you're welcome here, that I'm really just saying that in some ways when I'm sitting in the congregation in church. There aren't a lot of ways for me to act it out. But when I've been in a small group, that's the place where those things are lived, where those things that we say that we value, that everybody is welcome, everybody's accepted, and we want to connect with you, that becomes not just an idea, but a real visceral experience for people in that group as they come together and connect and share and uplift one another. And that is a powerful, powerful way to create the kind of community that really truly is an interconnected, woven together place where people are truly seen and valued and have a home as part of this. I mean, that's sort of not the way we use the word safety net, but that's what it feels like, that each one of these small groups creates that powerful connection. That's one of the strong parts of our net that we weave together in the web of our community. And that does create safety, and it does create the kind of community that allows everybody to flourish. I grew up in a culture where that wasn't the case. I grew up in a culture where certain parts of who I am were considered hierarchically better and way more important than others. Things like obedience and sacrifice. I appreciate being part of a culture now where all the parts of who I am are woven together and accepted and loved. Even the dark parts, even the scary parts, even the frustrating parts, even the awkward parts. It hasn't been easy to enter the small group, not because people weren't kind, but because I have so many fears. I have so many ways of thinking about the world that don't match what's actually going on in this group. And it's work. It's hard work. But I appreciate having the vision that I'm given every week at church of what it is that I'm doing. And it's such a beautiful, relaxing, it is a safety net sort of thing to participate in a community where nobody's trying to claw their way to the top of the pyramid and become apex anything. And people aren't really told that they can only be this role or that role, and you're kind of unimportant, not powerful supporting cast. In especially in the small groups, everybody has the opportunity to use who they are to be a wonderful influence on the people around them. And the things that I've seen in small groups are actually in the tiniest, most beautiful ways incredibly powerful. That experience of being accepted and accepting other people and allowing us to weave our lives together in these little tiny ways has really made everybody's lives that much better and provided us with a sort of a safety net, a belonging net. The web of our community really is inspiring and powerful because we're doing it all together, not because we have one charismatic leader or because we have huge amounts of influence that, in other ways that people gain influence in the world. It's really not about any of those things that people are really seeking after a lot of times. The power that's happening here is the power of the web, the power of being woven together, and the power that comes from all of the people participating in whatever way they want to and sharing in whatever way is right for them and being connected as much or as little as is comfortable for them. But those little tiny connections and those little experiences are so much more powerful than anything else that I've seen in the power to change lives, the power to uplift hearts, the power to actually allow us to live our fullest lives as humans. And I really appreciate the opportunity to let my little cord, my little self be woven in to this bigger community, this web of belonging.
So, thank you so much to all of our presenters for sharing their experiences with us today. Please join me in singing our closing hymn, Lean on Me, number 1021 in the hymnal.
So our closing reading is by George E. Odell. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we are in despair or temptation and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we have come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us.
There is a love Please join me in saying the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Coming together in the same place to talk, to bear witness to one another's lives seems such a small thing, yet it's the very thing that binds us as friends and couples, as families and teams, as communities and whole nations. It all starts with conversation. It is this ritual that makes us more than isolated consumers and weaves us into a community of belonging where we can find meaning and hope and purpose. If you could use more connection and belonging in your life, please reach out, fill out one of the little forms downstairs. This room is full of people who would love to get to know you better. And you can start right now downstairs with a cup of coffee. I hope to see you there. Thank you for coming.